okay? So if we go back, again, let's look at the real picture, okay? This is no secondary growth yet. But again, okay, vascular cambium, xylem on the inside, phloem on the outside. We're going to make a new ring of this, which is going to, it's not really pushing this in because there's nowhere to push it. When it makes it, it just kind of moves the whole thing out. So we get a ring of xylem, we still have our vascular cambium, and then we have our ring of phloem on the outside. Does it make sense?
Do all the flows?
The phloem sloughs up.
Well, remember they slough off, so you only have basically one phloem, and it is working.
But it's not the one that, it's one of the outermost, right?
Yes.
The primary one. As
Right.
they mix it.
Okay, so if you were to like tap into a tree to get it sapped, what would you get? What kind of sap? Like they don't have blood, they have sap. No?
Maple? Maple?
Okay. But what are you tapping into? Are you tapping into the phloem or the xylem? The phloem, which is why you're getting syrup. Because what is the job of the phloem? To carry the food or the sugar. So you're getting like, that's where you get maple trees, you get your maple syrup. You're tapping into its phloem. To tap into its xylem, you'd have to go all the way through the bark, all the way into the tree to get the water. And I don't know, that's also called sap, but I don't know why you'd want to.
They call it sapwood with, like, on the thing, even though
It's just neat because xylem is called, the fluid in the xylem is called sap too. They're both sap, but the phloem sap has sugar in it. The xylem, that's even worse to say. The xylem sap, I'm going to say flat, has just minerals dissolved in the water.
Oh yeah, wouldn't that like kill the trees if you're taking all of its like energy?
Well, you're not taking it all. They tap into it and they take some off and then they go to another tree. So they don't drain like all the sugar out of it. Yeah.
How you doing, Tim?
I,
Am I gonna be on the recording?
Okay. So if we're good on this, this is actually the last slide. We're doing really well. So I really like this one because you can see the plant here, and that's the apical meristem up there. So you're getting new growth off the top, and when your tree gets like a new shoot up off the top, isn't it thinner than
Yeah.
the bottom? It's in its first year, okay? So if we look at the first year, you can see again.
So you have to cut a tree at the bottom to see the like since it, where
Huh?
it's, like you have to cut a tree at the bottom to see the full amount of years that it's.
Yes, absolutely. So again, you can see dermal tissue, vascular tissue, phloem, xylem, ground tissue, okay? In between the xylem and the phloem, vascular cambium, okay? Fancy term for vascular meristem. Big xylem on the inside, phloem on the outside, but this is its first year, okay? The epidermis actually sloughs off when you become woody, okay? So if you look at this is the second year, look what happened. Here's my vascular cambium, and I just grew a ring of xylem here. So this is the new xylem. This is the old xylem. This doesn't work, this does. And do you see how that's going to be a bigger ring? Because it's outside the other xylem. This is a bigger ring of xylem than the initial was. And you're going to support a bigger plant. Yes, okay? So the working xylem and the working phloem are always the ones close to the vascular cambium. Although there's only going to be one phloem. Because it keeps sloughing. The new one, the old one keeps sloughing off. Yeah, Ben.
What causes the old phloem to stop being used?
It sloughs off.
No, I mean the old xylems.
Oh, that's what I was saying before. In the winter, when the leaves fall off and there's nothing to draw the water up through the xylem, air bubbles form, and that prevents the water. You can't like provide the water pressure through the bubbles to make it move again. So it just stops working.
How does the cambium, like the vascular cambium and the core cambium, how do they work in terms of, do they reproduce and, I guess they're stem cells, so when they reproduce, they become the...
Just like anything, what happens is they undergo mitosis, and then there's two where there was one. One stays a cambium, and the other one differentiates into xylem on the inside, phloem on the out, if it's
How
on the
does it, is there a
outside.
hormone to tell to do that? Or
Yes.
Okay.
When does the cork cambium come?
Okay, so we're getting there.
Okay.
So does everybody understand this part? Yeah. Okay.
Primary phloem, is that
Yeah, I mean, this just made a new ring, so this is still here, but during the course of the year, it's gonna take like the whole year. This is gonna slough off little bits at a time until it's gone. And then this is gonna be the only ring. And then the next year, it's gonna create a new ring, and this is now gonna be out here, and then that's gonna slough off throughout the year. So it just keeps happening. Now, the bark can get a little bit thicker, but the bark is from here out, and the rest of it obviously is the wood. Okay? There is a little bit of ground tissue on the inside that isn't wood, but. Do you see, and then the epidermis here also falls off. Okay, now let's go to the cork. I don't know how this happens, but when you get your second ring of growth, some of the cells out here actually become stem cells. I don't know where they come from, but it's called cork cambium, which makes what's called the cork. The cork is what you look at when you look at the tree and you see the bark. That's what the bark is really this whole thickness, but the very outside that you're looking at of the tree is the cork. That's actually what Robert Hooke looked at under the microscope and said, oh, they look like cells. They just look like empty boxes under a microscope if you can't see the organelles, but that's what he was actually looking at. So then the cork forms, but again, the cork and the phloem peel off throughout the year, and then you just make a new ring. Okay? So here now is another year. Here's our original xylem, our ring that we made last year, and here's our new ring. Again, it's bigger, so it's going to supply more water, and this is the only working xylem. This is all wood. Okay, look down here at our rings. This is the bark, the phloem, the cork cambium, and the cork. Yeah.
The secondary xylem and secondary phloem
Yes, but there's really, yes. I mean, this phloem sloughs off, so it like throughout the year, it's gonna go away. So it's probably not working either because the leaves fell off in the winter, and then they grow back in the spring, and that's when we're gonna get the second
Vascular
ring.
cambium is secondary is what makes it thick.
Yeah, the ones right on either side of it.
I thought like the working ones became primary, and then the ones that they left behind were like secondary, and then.
Well, it's just called secondary because it was made later. I mean, the primary would be still the initial. To me, that's more important to understand the concept of like what's going on. I mean, probably from just the wind and rain, and they're not sclerenchyma, okay? So they're not super strong. So it's just like your skin cells are constantly, just dying and falling off. You're not aware of it. You're not like, oh my gosh. But just over the course of the year, you've lost, I forget how many pounds of skin you lose a year, but it's gross.
So I want to know the branches just seem to like snap and stuff rather than the springs are more.
Oh, I was just like, ew.
I think that's
I like
more
where
due to the water flow through the tissues. They're going to dry out a little bit more in the winter, so they should become more
Because I know
brittle.
if like a branch is almost newer, it's really hard to snap it off.
Oh, I think it's because the sclerenchyma hasn't fully formed. Remember, hormones cause it to make that secondary cell wall, and then that secondary cell wall gets thicker and thicker, so it gets harder and harder. So when it's like just forming and it's really thin, I think you haven't really fully developed that sclerenchyma cells yet, so it's not